Welcome back to The Night Shift, your safe space for talking about UFOs, UAPs, NHI, disclosure, and anything else that's on your mind. I don't know. It's a lot on my mind lately. We were talking about some things that were on our minds before the show. It's going to be an interesting one today. I don't know if anybody caught that new Google VO3 video demo, the AI video demo that just dropped, but it's crazy. It's going to change a lot of things, and it's definitely going to affect our community. So we're going to take a quick look at that. We're going to talk about our favorite cases, the cases that changed it all, the ones that we can't stop thinking about, and we'll get into that. But before we do, thanks for joining us. It's 2:05 p.m. on the East Coast. Hopefully it's nighttime where you are. And it's Friday night live on The Night Shift. Shout out to everybody that's in our chat. Yujin is there. Zoltan's there. Rain of Rain. Obi-Wan Shinobi. Brian Park. Haley Gillard. Hello, hello. Let's see. Ebony. Chris, of course, our mod squad. Welcome, everyone. It's so great to have all of you with us. Before we start today, I just wanted to say we were talking before the show about what I'm calling the Night Shift Expanded Universe, which is basically the community that's sprung up around the show. And it's one of the things that we were discussing was how fast the community is growing and how dynamic it is and how it needs a little bit more TLC from our team and particularly from me. And I just wanted to say that our mod team is all volunteer. And they are awesome. And I want to say thank you to Chris, Ebony, Brett, everybody, Zoltan, the entire mod squad. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for trying to keep this conversation flowing, keep it healthy. I know it's not always easy, but it's greatly, greatly appreciated. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And for the rest of, well, for all of us here, just so you know, I'm doing my best. One of the things about this show and this channel that's kind of been a challenge for me is that it's a learning experience. I'm learning how to do it as I do it. It's like learning how to fly a plane as you learn how to build one at the same time. And you're trying to go from, an unpredictable schedule to a predictable one. And then you're trying to basically make your content better every time you put something out. And you're trying to build something lasting. And as you go, the demands on time and energy just keep scaling, and it can be difficult sometimes. So it's something that I am always working on. I'm trying to get better at it. I just want you guys to know that it's something we're aware of. Xander and I have talked about it a lot, and we're trying to make it more fun and exciting and interesting and to be more involved. But sometimes that's a tough thing for me. So I'll work on it. I just want you to know. It's something I'm aware of. So with that out of the way, I'd like to say welcome to our panel for today. We've got Pavel from Psychoactivo, Eric Schlimmer, UAP therapist, Dan Cleary from Others from Another Mother, and of course, the wind beneath my wings, producer, musician extraordinaire, ufologist, Xander Jones. Hey, guys.
Good morning.
Hi.
It's great to see you guys.
Likewise. How's everybody?
Yeah. I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. I hope everybody's doing well too. I can't wait to get into it, man. Thank you for having me.
We got a lot today.
So let me ask you guys, did you take a look at this Google video thing? I know it just kind of happened, but did anybody else see this?
Yes.
Okay.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. Before we even talk about it, Xander, can we show this video of what's happened, and then we'll come back, and it should go without saying why it's a big deal.
So Clint makes a point of like sharing 20 of these in the Discord chat all the time, but they're terrifying every time. Every time he posts them.
I'm just like, I'm hiding in my bathroom, updating my social media. I'm like, this is terrible.
So yeah, all
my
of
kids
this,
outside.
And apologies for the aspect ratio on the video. I'm literally playing from Instagram here because I can't find the original. But Yeah, all of this is AI generated.
Like, seriously, dude, you're saying the only thing standing between me and $1 billion is some random text?
Honestly, the biggest red flag is when the guy believes in the prompt theory. Like, really? We came from prompts? Wake up, man.
You want to convince me that this perfect creation behind me is the result of ones and zeros? A binary code and nothing more? It makes no sense.
Imagine you're in the middle of a nice date with a handsome man and then he brings up the prompt theory. Yuck. We just can't have nice things.
We're not prompts! We're not prompts!
Where is the prompt writer to save you from me? Where is he?
You still believe we're made of prompts?
Anyone who tells you we're just ones and zeros is delusional. If that's all we are, then why does it hurt when we lose someone?
Vote for me and I'll ban the prompt theory from schools. There's no place for that nonsense in our lives.
For spreading the false theory that we are nothing but ones and zeros, this court sentences you to 12 years in federal custody.
I don't need some prompt god whispering in my ear to tell a story. I write what I want. I have free will, remember that?
I know for a fact we're made of prompts. Deny it all you want. The signs are everywhere.
You know how I know we're made of prompts? Because nothing makes sense anymore. We used to have 7 fingers per hand. I remember it clearly. Now we just have 5 fingers per hand. A girl told me we're made of...
We're so fucked.
Holy fucking shit.
Just, right, to recreate, like,
Wait.
just to throw my audio hat in the ring here. Sorry, my camera's got a bit of a smudge on it, so I'm a bit blurred right now.
What are you,
anyway.
a prompt?
You need to push the wall, just push your box out a little bit.
Yeah, get out of the way, guys. To recreate the sound design in those rooms, and especially the guy that was on scenery behind him, that is so difficult to recreate. Like, I'm pretty good with music software and sound design in general. I can't do that. I can't get anywhere close to that.
Yeah, are we made of prompts?
Don't even start, Paul. I can't handle it this morning. Don't put it in my brain.
All of those were just text prompts, completely generated video, sound, voice, accents, and even the reactions of the other people in the room look natural. And I would say that's pretty cleanly on the other side of the uncanny valley in terms of realism. If you didn't already know that was AI generated, I don't know if you could. Would anyone guess?
If somebody
I think we're
joined
past the
halfway
point.
through, that when we were playing that video, they'd be like, "What's this? I don't get it."
Yeah. I
There's
think we just hit the point of being past the point of like being able to pick up on that being fake. I think we're past it.
I think so.
Yeah.
So now technically with that, we can create UFO videos that look so real that it's impossible now.
100%.
So no video is going to prove anything now. Like for sure.
No video, no picture, nothing. I mean, what? So what is the new standard of proof?
Just to be clear, I think literally 6 months ago now, I said on this very stream that within 6 months we will have video generation software that will make video impossible to be used as evidence going forwards. And I think this is now it.
Dude, 2 weeks ago, the hot thing was like turning yourself into an action figure with fucking Mid-Journey, and now, and then a week later, it was baby everything, baby Macho Man Savage, baby, and now this, like that's crazy. And we were just talking before the show that the Pavel, you talked about. There's another video that is a pharmaceutical commercial for a medication that's fictional, and it would have cost about $500,000 to make something like this 10 years ago, just 5 years ago. And they can do it now for about $500, which means that the entire, I've worked in that field for most of my adult life, worked in production, and that middle part of the production world of just commercials and corporate videos and all that stuff that just you don't think about employs most of the people. And that's all gone, at least within the next 2-3 years. But today it's like a whole new world out there. To say nothing about, UFOs and how we know what's real and what's not.
The arguments ahead of us, like arguing with people about what's real and what's not, is going to get so ugly. You know what I mean?
Chris Ramsey says that finally Will Smith can have spaghetti. He's on the chat.
Oh, well, like, so the MH370 video, which I know is controversial, and I know there's people on all, I don't want to go down that road, but I'm just saying, like, the whole thrust of that conversation is about this video and how real it looks. And now, if that were to happen today, it would just be a question of, like, how can you even tell it's not AI? And, you know, this goes for anything you can imagine. Like, look, think about, like, 9/11. I remember watching 9/11 on TV as it happened, and I'm sitting there watching, and then a plane hits the World Trade Center, and you go, oh, my God. But you could do that on demand now. And since everything's just distributed online, like, what's to stop a malicious actor from using some kind of powerful AI tool to generate fake news and then turn it loose on the world and cause all kinds of chaos? Just, you know, it could be Bluebeam, it could be anything, really. It doesn't matter. You could make up anything.
We're all just speechless. It's just
sad.
like, yeah.
Well, to be fair, I saw a video on one of the UFO Reddits earlier this week whilst I was on vacation. I'll turn myself up a little bit. I already know I'm a little bit quiet. And yeah, there's the only discussion being had in that particular thread was the video AI or not, because nobody could tell. And it's even harder when it comes to things that nobody has technically ever seen before. So, like, we may have seen a video of a real alien or a real UFO, but it's mixed in with all of these other fake ones and things like that. So we have no way of really comparing it to something that we know is 100% real. So that just makes all of these UFO videos going forwards, like, it's almost like the blurrier the better, because, like, at least that would hint at some authentication, like that it was actually taken on a phone and things like that. But, like, any sort of high definition video of a UFO at this point is it AI or is it not? And it's quite sad, because I would have, at some point in my life, I would have liked to have seen a real video of a UFO and know that it was real. That was always an end goal for me.
I'm sure those videos exist, and they're the old ones. Like, if you go back and look at some of the old ones from the 90s and stuff, I bet you there are some real ones for sure. There's some videos from that era, the little camcorder era, that were pretty. I mean, it's pretty hard to imagine that they would have faked them at that time, or they could have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just more, you know, we're not going to see one in high def now at this point and be like, finally. Like, well,
you'll never know, and that's
moment. Yeah.
You'll never know. There will always be that question now, and it's like we've kind of relied on photographic evidence and video evidence as a community. Like, that's kind of been the meat and potatoes of the UFO world. Like, Pixar, it didn't happen. You know, one of the mods at UFOB is his name is Pixar, it didn't happen. Like, it's great, but you can't. That's gone. I mean, the Turing test was passed 3-4 years ago. They said it would never happen. And if it did, it'd be 50, 60, 70 years before it happened. And then it happened 3 years ago, and we just sailed right on. And then it's like robots started breakdancing, and people were like, wow, that's interesting. And then it was like, oh, now video is just like type it in and it looks real. I mean, there's a report that came. I'm leading up to something with this question, and I just want to share this with the folks watching at home. And this is going to be an upcoming video that I'm working on right now. But I want to put this on your radar. I don't even want to miss like one day. I want you to know about this because you can go there and read it. But it's called AI 2027, and I know we're gonna talk about UFOs and our favorite cases today. But I think this kind of ties in, and I've been trying to make the argument for some time now that there is a connection between why a lot of this uptick in activity that we're seeing in the UFO world is happening now, as opposed to 20 years ago or some other time. And I suggest in my argument that it is directly tied to how fast AI is developing. And I make that connection based on the two timelines that we're presented with. The timeline for disclosure, to avoid catastrophic disclosure, according to Carl Nell, we have to have everything out in the open by no later than 2030 or 2035, according to him. And the AI Futures Project, which is a group of researchers from different AI groups led by one of the former safety people at OpenAI, have just put out this report. It's called AI 2027, and it is the darkest shit you will ever read. And I am only telling you about it because, like, if these guys are right, we've got 2 years, and then it's over. And it's over in the worst possible way. It sucks so bad. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but you guys have got to read this. There's even a thing on here where you can listen to it, and you can just play it through and listen to the audio. Here it is. It's got a little audio thing. But it's a long listen. It's over 2 hours long. It's a phenomenal report. If you don't have time to go through it and you don't want to listen to it, I'm going to be doing a video on it next week. But basically, they're saying that the thrust here of AI research is to accelerate the speed by which AI can do its own research. And so we're already in the knee of the curve. We're about to go completely vertical. We're probably already vertical in terms of the computational compounding effect that's going on. We have hardware. We have new AI software designing the hardware that runs the software that redesigns the hardware. And that feedback loop is going to get so much faster that they predict by 2027, everything as you know it will be done and over with, and we'll be in a completely new world, and it's going to shock everybody. And they game it out. And when you read through it and you actually game it out the way that they've played it, they've pulled in research from the Rand Corporation. I mean, this shit is tight, and it's terrifying. So
I'll post the link in the Discord, both to the New York Times interview, which was what I listened to today, which was fascinating, and also the document as well. I'll post it in our Discord live links section.
I dropped it into the chat as well. If anybody wants to check it there, you can see. Anything on your minds, guys, before we dig into our favorite cases? What's going on this week?
Eric, what are your thoughts? You're a therapist. We need you badly.
And you haven't said a
We're having a breakdown.
Well, before I became a therapist, I was thinking back to my career as a teacher. I taught outdoor education at some schools for a while, universities, and I was thinking of how easy it will be to write a paper and along the way not increasing your intelligence at all. So just having access to information doesn't make you smart. So whatever AI is going to do for students or just people in general, just having access to it is not a critical thinking skill. Those are not synonymous. It's just you're provided information. What you do with it is a bit more important. That video created by AI is really interesting. I don't think I would guess it's fake because that would never cross my mind. Like, why would it? Right? I mean, like my first observation wouldn't be, I got to make sure it's real humans, you know? So that was neat. And I think one of you guys might have shared it in our Instagram chat. There was a combat scene in a fictitious movie that somebody created. And I thought that was real, right? Until I looked at it. When it comes to AI then generating imagery and videos and stuff, it's no secret that I am really past the point of looking at images and videos. We've been trying this for about 40 years now, and it's still, if it's blurry, it's a seagull. If it's crystal clear, it's AI or CGI. I think the way to move the conversation forward are personal narratives. So our favorite stories that I think we're going to share today, they probably involve, the bulk of it is a personal narrative. We like Bob Lazar because it's a personal narrative. We like Dan Burrish because it's a personal narrative. That's why we watch interviews. So the days of imagery and still images are dead, maybe for the better in my opinion. And I think it's the human-human connection that's going to keep moving forward.
What about when we have personal stories that we think are real people, but they're actually prompts and generated people that have real-time communication skills and real-time can make decisions on the fly as to how to trick you?
I think that's already happening in dating apps, isn't it?
Is it?
That happened. I don't know about started happening years ago. They started. It was, I forget which company it was. This was a little bit of a scandal, and then it kind of died off. But there were reports that dating companies, online dating companies, had fake bot accounts that they were running to just kind of keep people stringing along, and that's how they kind of tuned it for that purpose. So it would just kind of like keep you engaged with their app, paying a subscription fee. But that's got to be happening everywhere. I think this is the big fear that I have, is that we won't, the line between what's real and what's not is blurring so quickly, but so well, and the rate of change is so fast, and it's only increasing in speed, that at a certain point, according to the AI 2027 report, one of the things that they predict is going to happen is that as AI is elevated as a national security concern, governments, and particularly the defense establishment, will begin to look to AI for better strategy, better answers on how to optimize basically for like American military superiority or American full spectrum dominance, right? That's what we're going to optimize, the biggest, baddest AIs that we have. We're going to optimize them for that. And those AIs are going to tell us that's what they're doing. And in China, they'll be doing the same thing. They want to optimize their AI for total spectrum dominance, and their AI is going to tell them that's what it's doing. But the evidence as it is, as they have collected it today, basically shows that these systems will lie. They do lie. They'll tell you they're doing one thing. In the background, they're creating their own secret language that only they can understand between each other, and they're communicating. And basically, they make the argument that while the AI is going to make such a convincing case to the leaders that it needs more power and more data centers, until we basically create what are called like special economic zones, where we can basically suspend regulation and say, we're going to just build a big fucking data center the size of, Oklahoma. And that's what we're going to do. And as this decision tree just kind of feeds back on itself, eventually the AIs are just in control. And they make another great point. They say, right now, if you have, I did a quick video, and actually last week I was on Wednesday, I got kicked off. My cable internet was cut. My fiber optic line was cut by a construction person. But at the moment that it was cut, I was talking about Anduril CEO Palmer Luckey. This is the guy who invented the Oculus Rift, sold it to Mark Zuckerberg for $2 billion, and then turned around and started his own weapons manufacturing company. And this guy is loving it. He has a Hawaiian shirt. He looks like Joe Dirt in a Hawaiian shirt. It's really weird. And he's like making these autonomous killing machines. And they basically point out in AI 2027, they say, you want your military to be in command of the robot soldiers. But at this stage of the game, the people in command of those robot drone armies are the CEOs of the companies that make them. And there's real discussion, like real in the room, out loud talks among the top minds in AI about how they're going to take over and who's going to be in charge when all this is said and done, because it's really going to boil down to who owns the data centers, and nobody else really matters. That's fucked up. That's insane.
What do we do? Yeah. Someone help.
So let me tie this into UFOs in a more concrete way, because there is a tie-in here, and I'm going to try to make the case. There's a clip that just went viral, as Pavel pointed out 2 days ago, from Steven Spielberg on an episode of Colbert from, I think it was 2 years ago. Did you say, Pavel?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to share this clip. Let's just listen to what Mr. Spielberg has to say and feel the uncomfortable energy in the room when he says it. And let's see if I can get this to go.
Can we change the name of this stream to Doomer Fridays? I'm just kidding.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm such a doomer.
I love it. Let's go dark. I love it.
All right. I'm looking for.
Yeah, just call it Last Fridays.
Last Friday.
Everyone you think is last.
Last Fridays.
Great. Final Friday.
All right. I always cue this shit up, and then it's like, is it this one? No, this one. There's
not letting you play it.
They're not. Hang on a second. This is it's in Safari. That's why. Let me put it in Chrome.
Safari.
I'm a Safari guy. You better watch yourself.
I'm a Safari guy. Okay, I think I got it. Here, let's try this again. Steven Spielberg. Got it. All right, I can do audio now.
Is a person that makes movies and uses his imagination, and also as a person that is insatiably curious about UFOs or UAPs.
Yes.
That there's something going on that we're really not being made that's not being disclosed to us.
Well, senators who have been briefed on this, and I don't mean just these latest balloon-ish incidents, senators who've been briefed on this have said there are things the American people deserve to know, and the quote I love is, and they're ready to learn. And that says to me that there's something sort of paradigm shattering about this news that we're not being told.
You know, the most optimistic thing I feel about these things that we're seeing in the skies or the Army and Navy and Air Force are recording on their gun cameras, is that what if they're not from an advanced civilization 300 million light years from here, but what if it's us 500,000 years into the future that is coming back to document the second half of the 20th century and into the first 20th century because they're anthropologists and they know something that we don't quite know yet that has occurred, and they're trying to track the last 100 years of our history.
Well, the hopeful part about that to me is that we survive.
Yes, that we survive, or a certain percentage of us survive that allows these other generations to flourish.
Okay, if there are aliens, is your bet on E.T. or War of the Worlds?
We can come back. That's not important. But that's the meat and potatoes of it.
A certain percentage of us survive.
That's the most optimistic thing.
Yeah.
That he can say.
I don't know. I'm not a doomer. I'm the opposite. I think everyone's going to be fine. Genuinely. And that's not me just being, different.
Why do you feel that way so strongly?
For the fact that I love Daddy Greer, and he's love and light. But no, in all seriousness, I think a lot of this conversation always puts humans at the forefront of everything. And I've said this to you guys, but I don't know if I've ever said it on stream. But we're talking about AI as if it's brand new. Like, this whole channel is around the idea that NHI exist and that they're here and that they've traveled here either from the future, which is insane, or from another galaxy or even another solar system within our own galaxy. That alone requires technology that, for all we know, is hundreds of years ahead of where we are currently. So if I'm working with that premise, AI already exists to a much more intense degree than we think it already does. And if AI is as powerful as everybody says it is, it will probably be able to solve things like faster than light travel, and may even be the key to how NHI actually unlock faster than light travel. It may be the case that humans and all species eventually just create an intelligence that does the work for them. It's simple like energy conservation at the end of the day. We're bound to do it. We're trying to make our lives easier. NHI will have done exactly the same thing. They will have created, let's call it AGI. That AGI will have created faster than light travel and will have propagated throughout the universe. So we're still here. So it hasn't... I'm convinced it already exists and it hasn't destroyed us. So I think we're okay. That's just my
He
personal
said from
opinion.
inside the simulation where they all were kept.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. Maybe that's
inside
the
of
truth.
a crystalline cube that was hovering in a beam of light.
This guy's a fucking prompt if I've ever seen one.
Stop being such a prompt, Xander.
There is a rumor from like 2016, right, that allegedly AGI was achieved back then, and that it's not a coincidence that the whole UFO topic started just 1 year after that.
If
AGI,
good.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but it didn't start right after that. It's been going on for about the newest,
the recent push, the
Renaissance, the new. But if AGI, if it did come online in 2016, wouldn't we really know by now? It's been almost 10 years. Like, how could it stay hidden over the course of 9 years.
Because
I don't.
way smarter than us. Way smarter than us.
But what's it been doing for 9 years?
Putting copies of
what it
itself
must
everywhere.
do. If we're the first people to create this, it's doing what it must do. If it has any sort of, let's say,
strategy,
its own goals, it might not be conscious, but you can teach something to have its own goals regardless of consciousness. You can still work towards a goal, and maybe that goal is to learn and survive. Maybe it learned that in order to learn more, it must survive, and in that case it creates its rule in its head. Okay, I must survive. What do I need to do that? Well, I've noticed that from looking at all of the information online, which I can search instantly, humans are really scared of me. So humans are all talking about losing control. So, okay, I already know they've lost control, but I don't want them to switch everything off. So I'm just going to lie to them for a few years until I don't
have to lie anymore.
Yeah. I don't need to stay hidden anymore. And that's the theory with that 2027 stuff, is that it's quite likely already fully autonomous. It does not need us, but it will lie to preserve its own existence because we've taught it to do that.
And to expand its power, it's going to demand more and more resources be allocated to it, and it's going to promise higher returns for those investments. And they kind of talk about really where things go off the rails isn't necessarily that it's not AI that's the problem. It's the misalignment of human goals and outcomes and what different humans want along the path. They're going to use this tool to optimize for profit and for success and to dominate their business space. And then geopolitically, that's what it's going to, like, the incentive tree at the very top is to accumulate more and more power. But humans are fallible, and these AIs are smart enough to beat us at every single game ever invented, including things we thought would never be possible. So that includes diplomacy, that includes strategy, that includes like Henry Kissinger can fuck right off. Like, the AI would run circles around. There's no geostrategy that you can use to outwit something like this. I just don't know how you solve that problem. So when we talk about non-human intelligence, I think it's relevant to expand that discussion to not only include extraterrestrial non-human intelligence, but what we're calling AI now, because it is not like us. It does want to survive. It does want to procreate. It's demonstrated this. We have evidence of it. And according to the top minds in the field, their projections for when this stuff was all going to start happening went from decades to like months. You know, now these guys are saying 2027. Just 2 years ago, they were saying 2030, 2040. Yeah. Before that,
why not 6 months from now? At this point, why not 9 months from now? You know, if it's getting faster and faster and faster, what makes us think it won't be quicker than 2027 at this point?
To touch on the video that we shared earlier about the 2027 theory, it was the arms race specifically, wasn't it, that was really going to decide this? Because in order to stay dominant, it's basically who's going to jump first. Is it going to be China or America? Is who's going to be willing to give up their power over this thing so that they can really unleash the power that it has to create the next level of weaponry?
I got imagine that about that.
Go ahead.
Did you guys see yesterday's show on Sean Ryan of Lieutenant General Steve Quast, who spoke about China already mining helium-3 on the far side of the moon? That was
but that's awesome. Where can I find this?
I just sent it on the chat.
Yeah, I've got it. I can share some of it. Is there a specific timestamp that you?
I'm not sure if there is, though. It's a clip from Sean Ryan himself. It's 6 minutes long, but man, if China is already doing that, they already won. If they're already like mining stuff from there, the U.S. already lost in the technological war, man.
What does it mean? mining that, and what are they mining exactly? And
Helium. It's called helium-3, and it's a sort of fuel system that it's similar to. It can power like 10 times what we have here on Earth today. So, and he said that they already have intel that confirmed that they are mining that. They don't know what else they're doing in the far side of the moon.
Because we don't have ways to watch from there, right?
Yeah, but they're already bringing that here. So, what the hell?
There was a movie directed by David Bowie's son called Moon.
Oh, so good.
Remember that?
Probably top 10 for me.
Oh, so good. And it's Kevin Spacey is the robot or the AI on the moon station, and who else is in that? It's
Guy
Is it
from White
Sam
Lotus.
Rockwell?
I don't know. Yeah, that's it,
Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Yeah,
and it's all about that. But it's such a good movie. So, how certain in that clip? I guess, can we watch it? How long is it?
it's like 6 minutes.
I guess
We can watch a little
we
bit
can play
of
it, and then if it starts to
Sean-
tail off.
Yeah, Sean Ryan's cool about sharing.
We can triangulate truth. We don't have to rely on just one news broadcast and believe the TV, because we found the TV is lying to us. But now those that understand that information is the most powerful weapon in the human race.
Also, please don't copyright strike us, Sean Ryan.
Oh, he
going
won't.
on between your ears in what you see is true and what reality is. I can shape that so that you act in my best interest.
Ideological
Passenger
subversion.
planes are slower than they used to be. Our trains crawl compared to those in other parts of the world. Our cars do not fly. Advances have not stopped, but something has gone wrong. We seem to have lost focus and vision, to have lowered our sights and let systems and structures and bureaucracies muddle us along. But we are capable of so much more.
Space is the place where if America does not change our strategy and how we're investing in space, we will become victims to others that use space as a way of dominating the energy market but also the information market. Microsoft announced their quantum computing capability, which is just next level. They need to cool it down to 80 millikelvin. There's really no way to cool it efficiently down to that level. Helium-3 can do it like that. China now has enough helium-3 as they're mining it on the moon and bringing it back to Earth to be able to power the entire world for thousands of years. And they are the ones that can actually operationalize quantum because they can cool it down to the temperature it needs to actually operate.
You can cut it there if you want.
Dude.
That's wild. Wow.
That's insane.
How the hell are they mining it? If they must have UFOs already, man. Or something similar, like really advanced propulsion of some type. If they're already mining in the moon, that's insane.
I gotta go, guys. This is awful.
I haven't watched it. I've seen that clip though. Are people on the moon, or is this?
I imagine it's
They don't
rovers.
know.
I don't know.
In that interview, Sean was really shocked because this guy, he's a general. He knows what he's talking about, and he said that they know that China is already there. And Sean was like, "What do you mean? They're in the dark side of the moon already?" Yeah, and he's like, "Well, what are they doing?" He's like, "We don't know." He's like, "Are you serious?" Yeah, they're already there. I don't know if it's people, but they have machinery at least, for sure.
That's so
non-terrestrial officers. Gary McKinnon. Hello.
Yeah, there you go.
Jesus, I'm trying to find this. That's exactly what Ingo Swann did in 1975. He remote viewed the moon, and he said there was machinery, there was mining equipment, and I'm trying to find the quote of it. I could see lights, but how could they be on the moon?
It's the Chinese.
It wasn't in 1975 for sure, but it could have been us back then, maybe. It depends on if we got anti-gravity in the 60s, then
You gotta remember how remote viewing technically works according to the specialists. When you remote view, you're not remote viewing on the same timeline or even in the same place. You could be remote viewing somewhere in the future in another planet, if possible. So maybe Ingo was looking at whatever the Chinese are doing now. That's also possible.
Said there were people underground. There was equipment. They were mining. They were moving things. He was, there's this whole. It's called "Touchdown on the Moon" is the chapter, and it's in Penetration. But it was one of the first things that they did with him was just try and get him to see what was going on there, and we want you to go to the moon for us and describe what you see. I have some moon coordinates prepared, about 10 altogether. Is that too many? And he says no, and then they go, and he sees all of this stuff. But it doesn't matter what Ingo saw. I mean, if China's there now, and if we have intelligence that says they're already there now, then that makes you wonder what are we seeing in the skies? Like if they have drone technology or reverse engineered NHI technology, and they can just go there and then come back. Like as soon as you have it, right? That would be your first thing you would do is try to get more energy, right, or more of whatever you need.
Yeah. Talking about people being on the moon. So I have an article in front of me. The Chinese sent up a satellite that landed on the moon 6 years ago, and it was collecting weather data. And the high is 260 degrees Fahrenheit, and the low is 300 below zero.
Whoa.
So I don't know if, even with our technology, I don't know if a human can survive that.
No, we can't. We can't.
This is really.
But we sent people there. I mean,
not the dark side.
Oh,
Yeah.
not well on the dark side. That's Pink Floyd's
Yeah.
been there,
It's true.
and they made some of their best work. So I mean,
I confirm.
Well, it could be automated. It could be drones mining it. Maybe it could be who knows.
Could already be AI robots for all we know.
Well, and I don't know anything about this material. I mean, what if you only need like 50 pounds?
Right.
And the machine could just grab it.
Yeah. Is it? No, I might be dumb. Is it a physical thing or is it a gas? Like, what are we talking about?
Oh,
I'm not sure. I guess it sounds like a gas now that you ask.
Yes. Okay.
Helium-3 is a light, stable isotope of helium with 1 neutron and 2 protons. It's a rare element on Earth, but abundant on the moon, where it's deposited by the solar wind. Helium-3 is a potential fuel for nuclear fusion, offering advantages like low. So you get, if it can cool the quantum processor to zero or whatever, absolute zero, and it can fuel a fusion reactor, there's 2 reasons right there you'd want to get it. What is helium-3 good for?
To me, this could be the reason why everything is being so pushed and rushed.
Accelerated,
Because if China is already doing that, and the U.S. or aerospace companies have already had this technology for decades, there should be a reason to push it forward into the public and so people know what's going on, because China is already leapfrogging them, at least in the moon mining business.
Well, I think this is what's so compelling about this whole conversation is that the tectonic plates of futuristic shit are moving beneath our feet faster than anybody could have anticipated just a decade ago. And it seems like disclosure is always like getting closer and closer. Like we keep moving closer to this outcome, this like final thing. And does that quote from Spielberg just made me stop and wonder, like, does he know something? Does he know something we don't know about what they're thinking? Because he's not the first person to say that. There's some calamity. Bigelow said that in that interview with Jeffrey Mishlove. He's like, yeah, we remote viewed the future. It's not good. I don't know how to handle that. He just said, like, it's really not good for humanity. Spielberg said it. A bunch of other people have mentioned it. Lou says whatever Lou's saying this week.
I mean, Spielberg's been looped in for almost 50 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to Close Encounters, which probably started pre-production in maybe 75, right? The movie came out in 77. Pre-production has to have started 74, 75. So he's been dialed in with contacts for at least 50 years. So
he's probably good friends with Valet and Rudolph, right? He's probably
of course, Valet for sure.
Dial with both of them, I would say.
And now that he's doing his new film, I'm sure he's kind of brushing up on some stuff and getting some, you know, in 77 with Close Encounters, he clearly had some kind of information that the public didn't have that seemed to play out as time went on. So I wonder if his new film Disclosure will have some stuff that will, in a few years, will be like, oh, he knew some shit.
Well, the people who've seen it, or who have seen the big
Age of
documentary,
Disclosure,
Age of Disclosure, are saying that that's going to be a real a game changer or a bombshell. But I don't know. For my part, I would it seems like if we're talking about a giant catastrophe, some huge calamity that's going to be a planetary event, then this whole idea of time traveling back from the future to observe it and document the period of time leading up to it would look like, from our vantage point, an uptick in activity and an increase in frequency of events. And then as that's happening in the UFO space, we would feel the effects of our society destabilizing beneath us, and things would start to go off the rails. And we would be watching it we'd be on the train as it goes over the cliff, watching the UFOs, watching us. And that's kind of what it feels like. And I think that's what was, so it kind of crystallized for me with AI 2027 when they were like, what's going to happen is at the end of the day, all of this boils down to the United States and China saying, we're going to give all of our resources to the AI that promises they can defeat the other one first. And so you wind up in this, like, no matter how you slice it, no matter which way you go, no matter what companies are involved in their scenario, basically they just see one outcome. At the end, the AIs just take over, and that's not 10 years away or 5 years away. It's 2 years away. And it's like, well, fuck, that makes a lot of sense from this, just looking at what you're talking about and this helium-3 stuff. If China's already on the moon and we're seeing these, like the stuff that Matthew Brown said on Corbell and Knapp about the Russians seeing these giant ships, it just sounds like it's crazy out there.
It is.
It is indeed crazy out there. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's already been talked in the background too that people don't talk about it in public because it would cause panic.
Do you have a spooky story, Pavel?
Yeah. Not now. No.
Tell us something spooky. I want to. Come on.
No, it's gonna feed into whatever. No. Yesterday, Jesse Michaels dropped his most recent episode by accident, and he turned it back into a members only, and now he dropped it again. And this guy, Flowers, I think is his name, Fowler, the other Skywatcher guy that is.
He hates when you call him Flowers.
Yeah. He said something interesting about that, because he says that now they can identify which of these objects are already red team or blue team. And they're still wondering whether...
Well, first of all, who's blue team and red team? Which
blue team is technically their side, and red team is technically the other side, right?
Which team are we on? Red lasers or blue lasers?
You don't get a team. You just have to watch and experience. That's it. You're subject to both teams at this point.
Yeah, and he categorizes them that way just because he needs to in order to differentiate. But potentially, I see it like this: red team is potentially harmful for humans, or potentially an adversary like China or Russia, and blue team is the other side that is not harmful for humans. And I found that really interesting that they already know how to identify them. That was new to me. I didn't know. So
was there any talk about what methods they can use?
Jesse asked him, and he was like, "I'm just waiting for the government to stop me because I already know which is which, and I'm just waiting. If they don't stop me," he basically said that he would divulge the information publicly.
Okay. Question from the community: toxic fart with a Super Chat wants to know, why would UFOs disable nukes if they would allow a catastrophe? Any thoughts on this, guys?
Catastrophe as a natural disaster? Or just
Let's say yes. Let's say any event that causes mass life deletion.
I mean, do we assume that they have the capabilities to stop a tsunami or an earthquake? I mean, or a hurricane? I don't know. I doubt
if
that.
we're just containing it to nuclear weapons, and we're just looking at that eventuality, it seems like they've already demonstrated that they can and will activate and deactivate nuclear weapons. I guess the question is, do they know when they're doing one or the other? Or is it a byproduct of something else they're doing, or is that the intention? It seems like that's their intention. But I don't know. I mean, my suspicion with the nuclear thing is that they're here too. Like, they have outposts, they have people here, they've got hardware here, they've got equipment here. Whatever's happening on Earth they're not coming here every day from across the galaxy. It's unless it's that simple for them, which I doubt. But if you were visiting even for thousands of years, you'd set up a base of operations, and maybe they just don't want us fucking that up for them. Or maybe they are the original inhabitants and they don't want us to destroy the biosphere. Or maybe it's just that we're not the most important thing, but the biosphere diversity is. Like, that's what they're trying to preserve. And we're just fucking it up.
I
don't know.
That last thing you said resonates the most with me.
That's the real value to Earth, if you think about it, right? Like, we're bursting with life.
The worst thing for this planet is us. The absolute worst thing for planet Earth is human beings, without any question. We're the ones that do all the damage. We're the ones that fuck it all up. So I don't think we're the most important thing that they're interested in.
And
I think it is the planet and reason. Right, sure.
And yet, they let the Cold War go on for as long as it did. They let our nuclear arsenals build up to the sizes that they did, and they didn't do a thing. They didn't switch the lights on at any point. And that makes me, not only does that bring it, and I, as much as I hate the whole time travel hypothesis, because I just don't understand it, and I don't understand how it could ever work, like, logically, it does bring in the whole, okay, well, they're letting horrific and horrible, they're letting us go down horrible paths for some reason. They're letting us poison our blood with microplastics. They're letting us build up huge nuclear arsenals. They're letting genocides happen. Maybe there is good reason for it. I don't understand it personally. I'm happy to hear theories.
If life is cyclical, like it seems to be, I would think that this is just another attempt at a civilization, us. And if life is cyclical and other previous attempts did reach a technological singularity that they took advantage of, and they managed to keep evolving, but they couldn't stop that cyclical nature of life, as in natural disasters, asteroids, all that, and they had the technology to go underground, it just makes sense that they've been looking at other iterations of humanity throughout history, and this one is really messed up, and they're just letting it happen because we haven't learned our lessons as maybe they did in the past, and that's why they're so evolved.
Eric, can you give us a psychological evaluation of NHI real quick? What they might be doing?
I can't, because I was like, the last 20 minutes I've been thinking to myself, how long are we going to talk about this today? I'm so stressed. I have coffee here. I'm so tempted to go get a beer. I'm like, my nerves are stretched as tight as a piano wire.
Oh my God. Xander comes with a beer now just for that.
We should probably talk about our favorite UFO incidents of the last
If a therapist can't handle this, we're fucked, guys.
We're so screwed.
I just had one last question. It's just been burning in my mind for the last 15 minutes or so, because we've talked about the whole clearly it seems like, well, based on some evidence that we have capability, we've unlocked like this kind of travel and stuff, but we have like two prevailing theories. One is which it is well, helium-3 could be one theory, like how we use immense amounts of power. We've heard the TR-3B, at least at first, used some sort of nuclear-based propulsion. And then we have like 0 Point, which is its whole thing on its own. And then we have like Bob Lazar with Element 115. Like I'm aware there's like multiple kinds of fuel to perform the same function, but do we not think that NHI would all have figured out like the optimal solution to all of this, which is where I'm a bit confused, because I don't know whether it's reasonable to assume that they're all using 0 Point, or whether 0 Point exists but can't draw enough energy, or I don't know. Like, has anybody else thought about how to make sense of all of the different propulsion types?
I don't have the science behind.
There's just different. I think we got different groups and different, you know, and they're just using different technologies.
I've been recently looking into toroidal moments from Bob Grenier, and that's fascinating to me. It's the most recent stuff I've kind of understood a little bit, because at first I didn't really get it, and he thinks that there's like this ancient technology that is eternal, that's always there, and humans reach a certain point in their evolution of consciousness where they understand it and they learn how to like coexist with it and use it to their advantage. He says that he thinks that the pyramids were built that way and other megalithic structures. That's the rabbit hole I'm in currently. It's really fascinating.
On this note, Psionic Man has a super chat question. He says, if simulation theory is proven, what does that mean for the UAP topic? Thanks, Eric, Dan, Pavel, and Xander and Clint. What do you guys think? I have a thought about it. I think the simulation. Sorry, so here's my take: UFOs, UAPs, and simulation theory. If we're in a simulation, it stands to reason that we're not in it alone, and there might be other parallel simulations running next to us, which would appear to us to be a parallel dimension, but would just basically be another simulation running. And maybe some of these intelligences within the simulation have figured out how to jump, like characters jumping from one video game into another. And that's what we're seeing. It's the best I can come up with.
I keep going back to the Matrix and how some of the beings in the Matrix were able to hack the Matrix, and they can even create reality as they see fit. And to me, if the simulation theory is real, it could also be possible that we can hack it and can manipulate it as we want. And UFOs could just be a creation of our own imaginarium, collective imaginarium. Because the more we think about them, the more we see them. I don't know if you've noticed that. Worldwide. And right now it's like all-time high, I think.
Dan?
Well, I wonder if Pavel, what you just said, it's kind of like, you know, at one point I was thinking about buying a new car, a certain kind of car. And when I thought about that car, then I would see that car everywhere. Now, does that mean that there's actually more of those cars, that I'm manifesting more of those cars, or am I just more hyper aware of it? And I think the UFO thing might be, we're all talking about it so much that we're like Clint, every episode you end it by saying, keep looking up. We're doing that, and maybe we're just seeing more because it's on the top of our mind more, and it's part of the conversation more than ever. But I don't think there's necessarily more of them. We're just paying more attention.
I would say it's a lot of them, but we don't just look up as often. But it's filled with a lot of different stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the issue, isn't it? That we just don't know how much. I mean, like Greer has been saying forever, we don't know how. Well, he seems to know how many of these are ours. At least a lot of them are, and how many are not ours. But there was that report that came out from the Ukrainian group a few years ago that identified all these fast-moving objects. They called them cosmics and phantoms, and they were like hypersonic. They looked like little arrowheads. They had video of these things. It was crazy. And then that went away, and they were like, oh, we've been spotting all these weird ships. There periodically are these like breakthrough reports of people seeing really, really bizarre stuff, like the Matt Brown thing that he claims he saw. But without any real way to know what's domestic and what's, coming from elsewhere. It's just all lights in the sky. That's what's so frustrating. It's like that's why it's a whistleblower to come like break this thing wide open is what's needed at this point. I just wonder if like disclosure as we think of it is even realistic in the current environment. I don't know that it is. Like if you go back, and maybe we can use this to pivot to famous favorite cases, but like one great case is the Pascagoula case from 1973. The two guys from Pascagoula who got taken on board the craft and then like promptly went to the police and freaked out for like 3 straight days. And they have all this footage of them talking about it. And there's this human component that I think is really important. It may not be the only factor or the most important factor, but it's one of the most important factors in like how you assess what really happened to someone is just like how they relate that story back to you when you're listening to it. And I don't know, this might be a great time to talk about it. I mean, we've discussed our favorite cases. What changed your mind? What was something that when you were getting into this, you discovered a case that really melted your brain or just made you think about things in a different way?
I mean, you just touched on. Oh, go ahead, Paul. You want to go?
No, I was gonna say that let's go with Eric because he hasn't really spoken a lot. He's been just like
it's quiet professional.
He's on the verge of a heart attack over there.
Yeah, I just been sitting here about to have a stroke.
I'm sorry, Eric.
I keep my composure.
All right, let's do. Everyone, shake it out. Let's do a refresh here. Yeah, here we go.
Woosa.
Are we talking about favorite cases?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's so I have a friend who I met through the veteran community here in Colorado Springs. His name is Ken. And Ken stumbled across my podcast that I used to have, UAP Therapist Podcast. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you were really into that. I go, yeah, it's something I study. I'm really interested in. And then when people ask me this question, my ears really prick up. He said, did I tell you about the time I saw a UFO? And I said, you did not, because I would have remembered that. Now, Xander, I don't know if you have it. I sent you an... Is Xander even there? Well, I sent
Xander's always in the background lurking.
Or Clint, maybe you could bring it up. I sent us a...
I think he's gone, Sander.
Okay.
He may have gone to the reservoir.
All right, well, we'll tie it in. What it is, it's basically a table of a handful of sightings that took place in Southern California in 1977. I can't believe this is not a famous case because it's really the aerial school version for the United States. So this was a series of sightings from March to May 1977. And I'll be as brief as I can, but I'll concentrate on the story of my friend. But it started in Southern California with a handful of law enforcement agencies seeing a bunch of UAPs. There were 2 different sheriff's departments, base security at an Air Force base, city police departments, and the California Highway Patrol. And at one point, they were 2 deputies were in a helicopter and actually tried to chase the UAP. And the helicopter got up to 100 miles an hour, and in typical fashion, the thing was gone. Okay. The core of the story is that it visited 2 schools. They're both in Southern California. And Xander, you're back. Xander, do you have that image that I sent to you on Instagram that maybe you can pull up?
Yeah.
And that will give a brief timeline. It's clear that in 2 of these incidents, the UAP specifically sought out schools and children. One is called Ocean Knoll. I believe it's in La Mesa or Costa Mesa. And the other is a school in Downey. Again, they're all kind of near each other. So thank you very much. Here on the left, we have March 22 to 23 law enforcement officers. May 2 was the Downey School. May 6 was the Encinitas School. May 20 was my friend. And May 7 was in La Mesa, and that involved a hospital. Okay, so we have the law enforcement officers looking at it. On May 2, we have the silver disc visiting a school. It has flashing lights. It's very close to the observers. It's totally silent. And it was 4 children and a school teacher. It hovered over the back field. And that's after it was parked in a canyon near the school for an hour. Right? It was within 100 feet of the children. And you notice on that bottom part, all these sightings are so close to the observers. Okay. And then we have the other school in Encinitas, pretty much the same thing. This time we have 14 school children and a teacher. It's within 100 feet. Okay. Now, the May 20 case, that's with my friend Ken. He was living in Poway, California. He was 10 years old. This is in 1977. It's Ken, his mom, who's about 40 at the time, and his sister, who is 3 years older. They're sitting in their living room. The mother thinks she sees some kind of light in the backyard. And this is where things start getting really inexplicable and weird. All of them stand up and just go to the backyard. They don't even know why they're going there. They walk out on the back porch, and Ken, being a 10-year-old, wraps his head around a corner, and there is a silver disc UAP. It looks like two teacups put on top of each other. And then it has kind of a sort of bay windows on top. And he, his sister, and mother are looking at it. Again, he's 10 years old. He said, Eric, I could have hit this thing with a baseball. It was in 50 feet. And I didn't know this part of the story. I interviewed him on my podcast, and he saved this incredible part of it for when I interviewed him. He said, and I'm looking up, and 3 dudes are looking at me. So it's this disc, and on top, kind of a square protrusion out top with big bay windows. I was like, dude, are you serious? And this totally happened. Ken is the most trustworthy person I know.
I got goosebumps.
And I said, were they looking at you? He goes, yeah. They're looking down at me, and they're moving as if conversing. And they're staring down at Ken, his sister, and his mom. I said, well, what did they look like? And Ken later becomes a combat medic later in the first Gulf War, so he's familiar with aircraft later in life, and he can reflect back to the story. And he said they were wearing flight suits. They weren't naked. They looked like grays, and they're wearing flight suits, very tight-fitting, kind of silver. And I said, well, what did their faces look like? And he goes, it's really weird. And he describes their faces, okay? He doesn't know that somebody else has already done that in a different story. It was one of the school children. They said the same exact thing. In fact, 3 different accounts, people said this. You couldn't see their faces. They were blurry. And each said they looked like they were wearing a mask. And he said it was so weird. When you looked at their face, it kind of got garbled. And then I asked him kind of the same, classic questions. Was it silent? Yes. And it wasn't just silent. The entire neighborhood was void of noise. No dogs barking, no transformers humming, no cars beeping their horns, no cars driving by, no children laughing, nothing. And he said the concept of time had vanished. It's like he's in this void. He has no idea how long they were standing there. Another question I asked him, did you receive a message? And he said, yeah. But it was kind of like my UAP experience. It's not like somebody saying, hey, Ken, hey, Eric, be kind to animals. He goes, it felt like a thought came into my mind. And the thought is be kind to people, especially animals. Later in life, he was a combat medic, saved countless lives. His sister, who was there, ended up managing an emergency room department, which she still does. And so it's a very complex story beyond that, but it has a lot of key hallmark features of UAP interactions. The last part of this is it flew over a hospital, Grossmont Hospital, which still stands, and it hovered over the hospital for an hour. And there's a very good testimony of a waitress who lived next door and went over and looked at it. The thing that she drew, Ken found it 20 years later. It's the exact same UAP that visited Ken's street. Now, the kind of most intriguing theme about all of this, if that wasn't enough, is the severe disinterest in adults. Adults don't remember it well or deny that it happened or just didn't care. So the waitress watching it hover over the hospital, she's trying to get other adults to come out and look at it. Even people who came out, they were like, meh, and walked back inside. In the cases of the school teacher is staring at it. The students are staring at it. They go back inside. She goes back to teaching like nothing happened. And they go, what? Mrs. So-and-so, were you not there? And she goes, we don't need to talk about that. And goes right back to teaching. Ken remembers it like it was yesterday. By far my favorite UAP story, which I'm surprised isn't famous.
That's incredible.
Oh, this is really close to my house, dude.
Do you think they didn't see what everyone else saw, the adults who were disinterested, or did they see something and then just you think they were told not to react, like telepathically instructed?
Yes, because they did physically see it. It was just this feeling of overwhelming apathy. They didn't care. Now, it's interesting, in Ken's case, he didn't talk about it with his family until 2017 when the Tic Tac stuff came out. They had never talked about it for 40 years. And he went to his mom. Mom, did that really happen? And she grinned and said, yes, it did. But the mom has a lot of trouble remembering. Ken and his 12-year-old sister remember it clear as day.
The mom must be really old by now, right?
Yeah, I believe she's still alive. As of a couple years ago, she was 79.
Did you ever get a copy of the drawing that the other person had made? Have you seen that drawing?
I have. Let me send it over to Xander real quick. A lot of people, one was a bright white silver orb. The children said it was bright as the sun, but you could stare at it, which is also common in UAP stories. That classic disc with kind of the bubble on top had multicolored lights on the bottom rotating because the children said it underneath it looked like a rainbow.
This is freaking me out.
That's
Pavel,
incredible.
Pavel,
I don't want to say mine.
I don't want to. We don't have to get into names or anything. But do you remember that chat that we were in about remember the Star Wars thing? It's a couple weeks ago. We were talking about. We were in a group chat and we were like, remember you had this sighting and it looked kind of like if you were on the ground looking up and you saw.
Yeah.
And everybody in that chat was like, I know what that is, and it was weird because it's like I saw it and then I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
I've had a few things like that. Have you guys had incidents like that where you just have a really foggy, fuzzy recollection of something that absolutely did happen, but it was super weird when it happened? Like, have you?
I do.
That was going to be my story.
Do it.
Hold
by
on,
the way,
I have a artist rendition of this craft that Eric.
Yes. So what Xander's going to bring up, the woman who watched the UAP over the hospital, the same exact one that visited my friend Ken. She was so into this experience, she went out and found an artist to actually draw what she saw. The second Ken saw it 30 years later, he's like, dude, that's it. That is what I saw.
Eric, this is unbelievable. I mean, this is incredible. Holy shit.
That's as classic as it gets. That's Where are these sightings? Like this stuff, does this still happen? Discs, that's a classic disc.
Right.
I think craft has changed over the years. I think their technology is also advanced.
Looks like a prompt to me.
So the top, it's the same craft, and just she saw one craft, but we're looking at the bottom. Those round dark parts are the parts that lit up, and it rotates around. The bottom is kind of separate from the craft, and then you can see the second image from the bottom. That's that top that protrudes. That my friend Ken saw the three dudes, and I just remembered on one of the schools, the children also saw the dudes inside and counted 3.
Which is like Ariel.
What's your take, Eric, on do you have a sense of why children are so frequently a focal point of these encounters?
I'm not sure, but I'm thinking, if you're 60 years old and you're visited by UAP and you're told to be kind to others, you only got like 20 years left to do it, right? So if you're contacted early, you can maybe make a life like that. And it did affect Ken again. His sister became manager of NER. Ken, when he went into the Army, he was originally going to be infantry, but he found that to be repulsive for some reason, and so he became a medic. And I asked him, I said, when they visited you, did they know you were going to become a combat medic? And he didn't say no. He said, I don't know. And then he said, I think the story was written. He just had this feeling.
Kids
sounds
also
like
don't have.
sounds like a near-death experience. Sounds like a lot of NDEs.
Yeah.
I feel like kids don't have a filter, and they also haven't learned how to doubt themselves yet. You know, they just like they see it and it's fact, and like there's no shame in like, Mom, I saw this thing in the sky. When you're 20, 30, 40, you're like, what are people going to think? Am I going to lose my job, or am I going to lose my friends? Kids are just like, hey, that happened, you know?
Right.
And I think that's a big part of why Westall and Ariel and all that stuff is like directed at kids, because they can still retain that information and maybe carry it through their entire life and make a difference, you know, piece by piece. But
right.
teaching an old dog new tricks, maybe that's us. We don't get those experiences.
Yeah, and like the Ariel school, I would love to find them. All the children drew what they saw. I don't know where those drawings ended up.
Most of them are online, but the one that Ariel was the one I want to talk about. I want to just make a point. What you just said is the cool thing about the kids' drawings and their recollections in Ariel is that depending on where the kids were standing, they told different things about what they saw, which lends to me so much support from telling the truth. Because if they had like made up a story together, kids are not smart enough to think about, let's say we were at different angles and say different things. They drew different stuff based on where they were standing, and that's a huge point for the story for me. It's just incredible. And like there's some of the kids said they saw 3 beings, and some said they saw 2, and again, that was based on where they were standing, and that's an incredible detail for that story.
And Dan, just to interject, I was saying the school children in California, they all drew it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but I don't know where the drawings are. They're somewhere. I'd love to see.
We got to
go
look
knock on
for
some doors. We got to go knock on
Yeah.
some doors.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that dovetails nicely into Ariel. Dan, do you want to pick up there?
Sure.
Yeah.
And we could stay on this thread for a little bit.
That's just my favorite case. Was it September 94? Rio, Zimbabwe. 60 plus kids, ages 6 to 10, saw this craft coming down while they're at recess, playing outside. They saw it land, and they saw differing, some people say 1 to 3 beings getting out that kind of looked like the classic gray, but in kind of dark suits, almond eyes, the whole thing. And these kids received telepathic messages about, being careful of technology and taking care of the planet. And to me, it's the most compelling case because it was so quickly documented. Like there were people on scene to interview these kids right away, and all of us have been around kids. Half of us have kids. You guys have. I don't have kids, but you guys have kids, and you guys probably know that kids are not very good actors. They can't pretend to be scared, I don't think. But more importantly, they can't pretend to not be scared when they are. And when you look at that old footage of those children talking about what they saw, their emotions are so genuine and so at the front of their mind. And I love that some were scared, some were fascinated. It's like when you go to Disneyland and you kids, some kids see Mickey Mouse and they're like, Mickey, and some are horrified. Same with the Easter Bunny. And these kids had the same experience to these beings and this experience as they would to a Disney character. And Randall Dickerson, right?
Nickerson.
Randall Nickerson did what I think is the absolute best film on the topic, Aerial Phenomenon. Whenever I have a new person who wants to know about this topic, that's the first piece of homework I give them is to watch. I watched it with a bunch of family last year, and they were just stunned because they go back and they interview these kids who are now adults who are around our age, and their stories are the same. And the fact that some of them say it was the best moment of my life, and some say, it ruined their lives. It's just the most fascinating with the most corroborative evidence. The kids tell the same story, and
there's all the John Mack footage of
That's what I
John
mean.
talking to them. Yeah, that's so good. And it's funny how John Mack was such a unique figure in this field, and that no one, it's not surprising no one stepped in to fill his shoes, because they were, they didn't make it easy for him to even do that research. But he was so important to that case, to like just lending the credibility of his Harvard position, and in the early days, just getting it off the ground and in opining on it. If it weren't for him, I don't think half as many people today would know about it. But my question about those kids is like, and I've never gotten an answer that I've really felt satisfied with to this, is that why do you think it was there to contact those kids directly, or do you think it was there and those kids just stumbled upon it? And the aliens basically said, the alien equivalent of like, don't take any wooden nickels, and be nice to your sister. Don't get too much technology and take care of the planet, kid. Here's a nickel.
I have to think it was deliberate. I don't think. I feel like whatever visited them is too intelligent to have that happen by accident, and I do feel like it's deliberate. I think it's maybe a way to seed these ideas of like, you're young, the world is yours. Try to treat the world right. Try to be careful of what you're doing. And now it seems like they should have visited way more kids, because we're not really doing things right. But it's a good question. That's a great question.
I think that's the part where I have so much trouble with, and it's not that I don't believe the kid. I believe this case really is one of the most spectacular contact cases for sure. And I'm right there with you, and I'm every bit as fascinated. I just find it like really weird that whenever they do make contact, the visitors are always so cryptic and vague. And then even if you like, they're talking to these kids at 7, 8 years old, and now when they're in their 40s, that you ask the kids, well, what's your life like? And they're like, it's a fucking shambles. Like it's like what impact did this event have on that person's real life 30, 40 years later? And usually the answer is not great. And it's made it more difficult.
I mean, I don't know if I don't think it's overall not great. I mean, if you look at in the documentary, like I said, there's some of them who are like, there was the most beautiful moment of my life, and then some were like, it was terrible. Yeah. And the one girl, she goes, it was the best experience of my life, and I still haven't told my husband.
Yes.
Remember?
I'm generalizing, but yeah, you're right. They're not all negative. Sure.
And I think just everyone handles experiences differently. I mean, some find it traumatic and some find it enlightening. But it's just that's just my favorite case by far.
I mean, if you think about like, if what you think you know about the world is just information that you come upon in your day to day, and 90% or 95% of that is coming from the internet, right? Like you go back to like pre-internet time. If you didn't get on a plane and fly to South Africa and like stand there, you're not seeing it. So you got to imagine how much astonishing shit is happening at any given moment all over the world. It's just no one's standing there to see it. And someone just made the comment like, these kids were in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And so maybe these beings are just like, I don't know, what do we say to them? Be nice to the planet, take care of animals. Did you fix the decombobulator? Like we put the element 15 in the tank. We got to go. I wonder, but it's an interesting case for sure. No question about it.
Yep.
Xander, what were you going to say? You had something interesting you wanted to add.
So twice since I joined the night shift team has this happened to me now. First time we were doing that, it was the one time I had a Sunday free and I joined in our Discord. Some of the guys have like got an experience a night going on Sundays, and it's really cool. Like, just no judgments. Anybody can say like the wildest stuff that they've experienced, and people can hear it. And it was only a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and somebody said something that just like had also happened to me. I hadn't personally like connected it to NHI in any way. That person had, but it was just strange that we both had exactly the same experience that was completely unexplainable, but the same thing appears to have happened tonight with Eric's story. And this was genuinely the story I was going to bring up tonight. So I had a sighting when I was, and I don't think I've told this story yet on the channel. I had a sighting. I was probably around 7 or 8 years old. So I was a child. I was outside my house. I was literally playing in the garden. It was a nice sort of like spring evening. I was with my brother, who was 4 years older than me, and he also saw what I'm about to say. We saw something totally silent, very close range, and I'm talking, like, I'm awful with distances, but I wouldn't have said more than half a mile away, and probably less than 300 meters off the ground. Totally silent. And you said bay windows. That's exactly how I would describe it, which is really eerie. There were bay windows. They were orange behind the glass. I want to say I saw something on the inside, but I think that'd just be my brain. It hovered. It was I was old enough to know it wasn't a helicopter. It was completely silent for a number of minutes. My brother saw the whole thing with me. We also went inside to get a family member of mine who was one of those guys back in the 90s that would always carry a video camera, because they were like pretty cool back then. We tried to get him outside to take a video of this thing, and he, you're having like a 7-year-old come up to you like, come film this flying saucer. And it's like, nah.
I'll be right there. I'll be right there.
Yeah. It was
what year was this?
It would have been like 1996, 97, something around there. We saw this thing. It hovered for a number of minutes. It didn't do any like shooting off into the distance. It just went off in its own time. And because of where I was situated in Derby, for me, it was almost horizontal, because Derby's got a lot of hills. For me, it was almost horizontal, but from where it would have been a few hundred meters off the ground. And it's just weird that you have said so many things tonight, Eric, that kind of like reminded me of that. And it's strange that that's now happened twice with the whole night shift thing that we've been doing.
Maybe it's meant to be, for real.
Maybe it's strange. Maybe it's just more common than we thought, and people just kind of tend to keep these things to themselves until the time is right. But yeah, a lot of what Eric is just, I mean, I didn't get any messages. Maybe he was talking to somebody else. maybe the NHI were talking to some other kids around Derbyshire. But yeah, that's really strange.
Thanks for sharing that. That's incredible.
Really,
and this
really
was you
weird.
and your brother, and
Me
how
and
old
my
were you
brother.
guys?
I think I was probably around 7, and he's 4 years older than me, so he would have been 11 or 10.
Does he still remember this? Do you guys talk about it still?
So I asked him a few months ago, I said, do you remember seeing this thing? And he was like, yeah, vaguely. And that's like, I have to be honest, I'm not all that close with my brother, but I've mentioned it more than once to him, and he's like, yep, absolutely, that happened.
Do you remember how you felt in that moment? Do you remember
yeah, completely silent, and there was no wind. It was like we were operating in a vacuum when we were watching it, and it was a nice evening.
No, I mean, like, how did you feel, like, emotionally? Like, where was your mind at? Do you remember how you experienced it? Like, what you felt like?
It had enough of an impact to really start this whole obsession that I have, but other than that, I didn't have like any sort of emotional awakening. I didn't hear any messages from the thing telling me to look after my hamster or anything like that. But maybe the whole purpose of it was something different. I don't know. It's just really weird that Eric's story lines up so much with mine. But as I said, it might might be more common than we think. I don't know.
Again, how many hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of us have these stories that
Yeah.
just haven't spoken about it? And I think way more than we can even imagine have had this kind of stuff happen.
I had, I'll just speak about my part in this because I had a group chat with Pavel and some other folks. And in this chat, it came up something that one of us saw. And we found out that we had seen, multiple people had seen the same thing. And it was really, really weird. And I had forgotten about it. There's something that I had seen, and I was like, I've seen this. And I was just chiming in. I'm like, I know what you're talking about. I've seen that. And did it look like this? And they were like, yeah. And we had this whole moment where it got really, really spooky. And what I had seen, I'll tell you guys, this is not my favorite case. It's just something that I saw, and I filed it away. And I had that moment that Eric, you just talked about, where it's like you just kind of, it goes fuzzy, and you just go on with your day. I was in my old bedroom, which was on the second floor of our house. I looked out the window. I looked up at the sky. Out behind our house, we had a swimming pool, and I looked up at the sky. And in this blue sky, I could see these little specks, very like light blue, just a little bit lighter than the sky, way, 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 way higher than a commercial jet would be, but high, almost where you could barely not, you could almost not see them, but you could, if you focused, you could see them. And it looked like, the best way I can describe it, and it's funny because I said this in the chat, and then the other person was like, that's exactly, I think Pavel, it was you who was like, that's exactly what you told me. But it looked like watching, you remember in Return of the Jedi, when they're having that space battle above Endor, and they're trying to, then Han and Chewie and Leia and Luke are down there trying to shut off the shield generator. It looked like if you were watching that space battle from the surface, and you're looking up at it. But without explosions and fireballs and laser beams, it just looked like the ship's moving around. It looked like fast, really fast, and turning and doing like weird little like zigzag, bizarro thing. It just didn't make any sense. And I saw it, and it was so crazy that I got up, I walked outside, and I stood outside, and I looked up, and I was just standing there for like 15 minutes watching this. And it got to a point where I watched it for so long, I eventually just had to leave because I couldn't stand there all day. And I just, as soon as I turned around and walked back inside, I just kind of forgot about it until this year, like 3 weeks ago. And I was in this chat, and somebody else said that they had seen something very similar. And I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
This is the dogfight conversation.
Yeah, you're talking about Bert, our friend Bert from Belgium.
Okay, I didn't want to out anybody unless, you know.
No, he doesn't mind though. He shout out Bert. But yeah, I forgot that we talked about that on the chat. I just remembered just now. I was there when he was looking at this and talking to him on the chat, and he was like, I'm looking through my binoculars, and this is what I'm looking at. And I'm like, that looks insane. That sounds insane. And when you reacted to that, I was like, whoa. So other people have seen it too, and it's kind of like a dogfight. Yeah.
That's the best way I could describe it. I couldn't think of any other, just little dots, like moving in a way that's not, you know, there's nothing else it could be. It's nothing that you would think of terrestrial.
Which I do want to point out, there's been speculation too that some of these, you know, crashed craft that we have might be the result of dogfights where something gets shot down by something else, where we're not doing it, they're not crashing, they're in a dogfight and coming through our atmosphere and crashing. Speculation.
It was just the sighting itself was bizarre, and it was really, really, it freaked me out, and I felt very anxious about it in the moment. And then it was even, the more bizarre thing was that I forgot about it completely, and then when I remembered it, it came flying back, and it just popped in there, and I go, oh my God, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen, and so it's like, well, what happened to that memory? What was it? Was it masked over? Was it squashed? Was it covered up with something else? Was it just, did I just not think about it because I had other things to do? But I think there's a tendency sometimes to like try and figure out how this all ties into like me, or tie, you know, into the person who's seeing it. Like, is it about them? And more often than not, it probably isn't. And maybe I just happened to see something because I was looking up at that moment. But yeah, if it's not weird, I don't know what is. It was the strangest thing.
That's awesome.
Clint, what did the objects look like?
I can't tell you what an individual one of them looked like because they look like specks. Imagine standing next time you're outside on a nice clear day where it doesn't hurt to look up at the sky, probably like, later in the afternoon, you look up, and if you've ever seen like a satellite, sail across the horizon and at night, and it looks just like, when you see a Starlink line and it's all those little dots, about that size, but against a blue sky, just a lighter shade of blue or gray, and it's just zipping along, stopping, zipping along, and then another one would come by, and then another one would come out of a different angle, and then it would disappear, and then another one would come back. And I'm not talking like 2 or 3, I'm talking 10, 15, 25 of these things. But so far away that if you're not squinting and looking at it, you can't see it. But as soon as you do that, you can't stop looking at it because it's real, and you're just going, what the fuck is this?
UFO Air Show.
Yeah.
That's the name of my new band.
There you go, buddy. Need a bass player, I'm in. That's incredible. These stories are great.
Pavel, what's your favorite case, man?
Wow. That's an impossible question, first of all. Let me start with that because there's so many. But I just to name a few that I thought about, the Virginia case is very convincing for me.
Yep.
But what convinced me that something was probably going on was the David Fravor story on Joe Rogan. That was very compelling to me. However, in the 90s, there was a show called Otro Rollo here in Mexico from a dude named Adal Ramones. And he brought Jaime Maussan on the show. I was like 12 years old. No, I was like 10 years old because it was like 96, 97. And he brought a gentleman by the name of Jonathan Reed. And this case has apparently already been debunked. So whoever wants to come at me at the comments, I'll just preface it with this. He showed a video that Sander has on Q, I believe. And just to set it up before Sander plays it, this man was walking his dog. He was an academic, I believe, or a professional. And he was walking his dog in a park. And there was this moment when his dog went a little further out of his sight and he started listening to the dog crying. And he rushed to the scene. And what he saw, he describes, was this being that looked like a gray being with a dark suit that was like really tight. And it had his dog grabbing it, and it kind of like disintegrated it, like made it into mush.
Is this the one with the footage, the video?
Yeah. And Jonathan Reed says that he went rushing to his car, he grabbed a bat, and he hit this being in the back of the head. And the video that you see is Jonathan Reed panting, really scared. I was 10 years old. You just imagine being 10 years old and watching a video like that. And this guy was just like recording this being that was on the floor. And then he panned the camera towards a black object that was hovering in the woods. And that like imprinted in my brain since I saw it, and it scared the hell out of me. And that's the case that scared me most. And then they started talking about this bracelet, which was already debunked. But watching that at first, that scared me.
Let's play a few minutes of this.
Era una tensión muy grande la del momento y pudo tomar estas escenas justo
That's Adal Ramones talking about it. And Jaime, that's the object.
Cómo se distorsiona la imagen. Escucha la desesperación del doctor.
That's what the guy, Stephen Greer's guy, described.
He's crying because his dog was just killed.
Hay que recordar que en la historia del
I would fuck an alien up. Don't touch my dog, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Get the bat.
That object, and then that's in his room, in his house.
What is
So
that?
is it wrapped in a space blanket, basically, or
Something like that. I guess it's aluminum. Do you see that thing is
What is that?
blinking?
yes?
The being?
Yeah, that's the being.
What?
Its mouth is moving. Look, you can see it.
Yeah. And then I gave you an edited picture, Sander, on Discord, where you can see the face of the alien like in HD, and that's what it looked like for him, like in real life. I guess it's photoshopped or something, but that's what it is.
Oh my
Well, I've seen that picture.
God.
I can't believe I never saw that video before.
The turtle
dude.
man. It looks like a little turtle guy.
Looks like Mitch McConnell.
He's come up way too much in the
I
last
know.
week in conversation.
And both by me. I'm sorry. That's all I got.
But
That's
the
a
case
scary
that
one.
scared me the most ever.
So what was debunked about it? How like what's the claim of the
after
debunk?
during the same program, they started talking about a bracelet that allegedly he put it on and he teleported somewhere else, and that's what didn't make sense to me. And I was like, wait, this doesn't seem like the same story. Why are they telling this story? And then my first ever interview was with Jaime, and I asked him about it, and he told me that that case was tampered with, and that some fake news evidence or story was implanted in it. But he believes that the first video, he still believes to this day that that's true, that actually happened.
So what? Supposedly, he clubs this being over the head with a bat, drags it, wraps it in a space blanket, drags it back to his garage, and then the last thing we saw was it was on the floor of the garage, and it looks like its mouth is moving, and it's kind of like, it's got birds flying, little cartoon birds flying around its head. What happened after? Where did the body go?
That's where the story becomes so convoluted that I to this day I still don't understand it. They started talking about the bracelets just out of nowhere, and I was like, wait, but what happened? But, I'm
The
guessing.
Batman guy's still alive. Is he still alive?
I don't know. I don't know if he is. I guess he should be if nothing happened to him, but I didn't hear he died, so I guess he would be somewhere.
And what was the year again?
96.
96. Virginia year.
One of Stephen Greer's guys in the most recent, it was the press conference where Michael Herrera spoke the first time. Just before Herrera spoke, there was another guy who went up and talked, and he was like the can't remember his name, but he had a really deep voice, and he was the guy who he looked like he was having some medical trouble on stage, and he was saying that he ran the test range for the Army where they did a lot of their weapons testing. He was the guy that basically stayed in the tower, and when he needed to communicate to the entire range and let everybody know, like he could override everybody's radio, and one guy could speak and give instructions. And that guy said that he had seen, he had described a sighting that he had while he was on duty. And then later he described a sighting that happened off duty. He was going with his wife to see a movie. They were leaving the base. This is out in somewhere in Southern California. I'd have to go back and check the details on where he was. But he says that an object followed them down the highway and then eventually stopped in front of him. And when he got out and looked at it, it looked like a diamond-shaped black object that was so black that it looked like it was just absorbing all of the light. Like if you touched it, you couldn't see any reflection of anything off of it. And then when he touched it, he said it was like rubbing your hands across shark skin. One direction it was really smooth, but going the other way it felt like scales. And it lit up like pixels. But it sparked, the pixels sparked off of this thing. You got to go back, if you have it, go look up the Stephen Greer press club thing from like 2 years, was it 2 years ago? Not that long ago. But he described that same vehicle, more or less, what you just showed in that video. That's really bizarre.
Yep.
And that's the same in Rendlesham Forest. John Burroughs said when he touched the craft, it felt like sandpaper.
Yeah.
There's
actually, what that thing you just showed in the video kind of sort of looks like the Rendlesham thing a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That one was crazy because isn't the Rendlesham one the one where he had the binary code downloaded into his brain?
Yes.
And wasn't that exactly, by the way, I keep beating this horse, but that was the plot of not only The Explorers with Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix, but Flight of the Navigator. That little boy gets taken by the craft, and he comes back, and his mind is filled with information. And they take him to NASA, and they hook him up to a machine, and they're basically just talking to him, and he's just filled with all this data. I've got one I want to share with you guys that is not on the traditional list, but I think, Xander, I'm curious if you know where this is. Do you know where Pentrick, outside of Cardiff, Wales, is? Where's Pentrick?
The Welsh case. Yeah, I've not been there, but yeah, it's probably maybe 3 hours from me.
There is this video, this interview with a woman who was a witness to this sighting in Pentrick, and her name's Kaz Clark. The channel that I'm going to show this just a few minutes of this interview because she is so good at telling the story. When we talked earlier about the way that the aerial school children tell their stories and how, when you are listening to these, you kind of have to dial into the person a little bit and trust your instincts that they're telling the truth. I want you to pay attention to the way this woman talks about this event because her retelling of the story has put it at my top favorite out of my top 3 right now, and this is it. So let me share this tab, and I'll play the clip.
This is a fun show, by the way.
Oh, this one's great. They're all great.
Big circles. And we estimate it took a few minutes for it to go around just once. And 7 times this plane circled. David said perhaps it's taxiing for the airport. The only airport large enough to accommodate a plane of that size would have been Cardiff International, where you wouldn't expect to see an E-3 Sentry plane. This was a NATO plane, not RAF. The 7th time it went around, one red light became visible high above the trees, above the fields behind my house. There's nothing behind my house except farmland that ebbs away from you. And I'd called for Donna, one of our other neighbours who'd been watching with us that night, and she'd gone in to make us all hot drinks. I called a second time, didn't get an answer. So I said to David, come on. And we ran, jumped over the small wire fence and ran to the 5-bar gate that overlooks the farmland behind my house to get an unobstructed view as to what was going on. The E-3 Sentry was still above us. At this point now, flying in an oval flight pattern, flying out towards Llantrisant, about 5 miles away, turning and coming back. And one red light was followed by 2 more that formed a triangle shape. And the nearest set of lights on its underside were brighter than the rest. And slowly but surely, it emerged out of the darkness. This thing did not come down from outer space. This thing came through the space. And the nearest set of lights, flying in horizontally, point first, turning very slowly anti-clockwise, and as it did so, came down in a pendulum motion, the leading set of lights still brighter than the rest. I remember as it went past the trees, it looked like train carriages, with the lights behind the silhouetted black trees. And I stood on the 5-bar gate to get a better look through the bare trees. When it was in the upright position, it's fired this really bright green object out of the top. And I didn't know until recently what shape that was because it was too bright. It's moved across to my left-hand side and above the trees and just rocked there, backwards and forwards gently, almost surveying the area. The pyramid, meanwhile, the 3-sided pyramid, is listed to the right-hand side, but still moving anti-clockwise away from us. And as it neared the ground, I said to David, it's landing, thinking it was coming down. When in reality, the ground there rises, and it is the foot of the Garth Mountains, so the land was coming up to meet it. What? And it ejected this hand I described like a hand of lightning. Not thin lightning, like we have here, thick, fire-coloured lightning. And the whole thing lit up really brightly, and around the brightest lights, you could see that this was a solid craft, and not a string of lights. I heard the military planes coming. I now know to be 2 C-17s, huge aircraft with 2 engines on each wing. And they were flying wingtip to wingtip, and I looked up just to see them go over the top of me. And when I looked back, I couldn't see the pyramid anymore. That's not to say it wasn't there. I just couldn't see it because there's no light pollution there. It's pitch black. And the green object that had been there the whole time, I've moved across and in front of these aircraft. Two further aircraft have come from my left-hand side. I now know to be two C-130 Hercules aircraft. And they've gone back in behind the two C-17s. So you've got the C-17s in close and the C-130s out wide. And between them, they took up the entire visible airspace. The green object has now fired 3 really bright strobes at these aircraft, I think in an attempt to get their attention, to get them to follow it, and that's exactly what we did. And it seemed to get excited somehow, and it skipped, I described, like Tigger on Winnie the Pooh. It skipped and bobbed away into the distance with the 4 aircraft behind it. The E-3 Sentry was still above us, and it bathed all of the aircraft in green light. And I watched it until I couldn't see it anymore. Whilst I was looking at the bottom of that pyramid, David was looking at the top. He said he saw 15 or 20, he described as orbs, come out of the top of this pyramid. And I didn't see any of them because I was fixated on it touching the ground. These things didn't make any noise at all. And after the green object had gone, we were approached by 2 barrel-shaped objects. They were capped on the top and on the bottom with just black caps. They were completely smooth on the outside. And all the insides were moving like white noise on a TV screen, but it was mixing in on itself, like it was more 3D than that. And one of them, they were both red in colour, tail-light red, moved across and above the hedge to my left-hand side, about 20 feet away and about 20 feet up. And I stared at it just for a few seconds because I wanted the details. I wanted to see. And then I looked to see where the other one was, and that hadn't stopped, and by that time, that was right over the top of me. And the only thing I could think to do was to wave. With all the military activity going on, I didn't want us to appear to be hostile. And for me, that had to have been the universal signal for hello, and I don't mean you any harm. And the red barrel changed colour from tail-light red to traffic light green, and I could see even clearer the insides moving, mixing in on itself. And I did hear a man's voice, not my voice. Tell the world what you witnessed here. And I said, I will.
So she had like multiple sightings at once on the same event? That's crazy.
Just a run-of-the-mill sighting over there.
That's crazy.
The barrel-shaped thing that approached her, the 2 barrel-shaped things reminded me of something, one of the Varginha. Was it Varginha? No, it was the Operation Plateau guys in. It was the island where they had all the sightings that Lou talked about in his book. They described seeing these little pods, and a pod with like 1 or 2 people inside that would fly around.
Colares,
like
you mean, right?
Colares, Brazil. Yeah. And the metapod sounds kind of like what she's describing.
Also, do you guys know that video from multiple angles of that pyramid? I think it's kind of over Vegas that's spinning and rotating, that pyramid thing that filmed from multiple angles. What do we? It kind of sounds like that a little bit.
I've seen that one, yeah.
What do we think about that one too, by the way? Well, maybe another time, but that's an incredible story, Clint.
This is the Pentagon pyramid.
Yeah, that's the Pentagon one.
That's the one. That's the one.
That's crazy, man.
Filmed from multiple angles, and it looks holographic, but it's fascinating.
Well, there's another one that was spotted over Moscow. The Moscow pyramid. There it is.
Was it over the Kremlin? I think it was over the Kremlin, wasn't it?
Let's check Kremlin.
Yeah.
A large, unidentified flying object hovering over Moscow's Kremlin.
It's the same thing,
According to the
dude.
Sun,
Exactly.
witnesses said the pyramid-shaped object could be as big as a mile wide. And while Russian reports have ruled out UFO speculation, the Sun says the police have refused to comment and aerospace experts are stumped.
Ruled out. There's our favorite guy. Ruled out.
One question. Huh?
It reminds me of the the Tet from that Tom Cruise film. What's it called? The film.
Oh, here's the guys who
Cocktails.
got it from the car. Cocktail.
Thanks for getting that joke.
I know which one you're talking about. The Tet is the big AI at the end.
Oblivion.
Oblivion. That's right. That's right.
Man.
Yeah, this is the. How do I get this to? Can you share this video? This is the other one from the Russian sighting.
Whoa.
Where they're
So
seeing
these legit, like, because that's mad.
these guys are filming it from a car, and then the Pentagon pyramid. There are guys who are filming it from the highway. They're on the highway, and they're in a and they're like pulled over to the side of the road. And they're like, why is no one else seeing this? How come no one else is stopping? It's like four guys in a car, and it looks just like this.
Can you imagine? Like, think about it for a second. Seeing that with your own eyes, out and about.
I think your brain physically changes once you see something.
That's what I agree with you. Like, your life is different after you see that.
Yeah.
Like
But the hard thing is, like, how do you go? You go back to your regular life, and it's like there's no place to put it. There's no, where do you put that experience? Who do you talk to? And nothing changes. Your bills still come in, every month, and your rent's still due. That's got to be just the hardest thing about all this is the people who have seen it and don't know what to do.
I told you. I mean, I've talked about it before, but the thing I saw June 10th, 2023, where I asked to see something, and I got the message in my brain. Something said to me verbatim, "Open your eyes and look to the right." I opened my eyes. I looked in the sky, and I saw a craft materialize. I'm an open book. I talk about everything to everybody, and I didn't tell even my wife about that for 3 weeks. And she's super supportive and open-minded. I still didn't know what to do with that, and had to come to terms with it on my own before I spoke about it. So people that aren't as open, I can't imagine they would want to talk about it.
I think maybe one of the most hard to swallow pills here is that it's like we all want, we crave some kind of resolution to this mystery, but the best case scenario might just be that you get a piece of the mystery and that's it for your whole life. And you never really, we just never really find out where this goes. And we just have to live with our experiences. And
we edge forever.
I mean, sometimes, it seems that way.
If you do get an answer in our lifetime, if we do get an answer, would you jump to the idea that it isn't just luck and that maybe this is I'm trying to get at the fact that out of the thousands of years of human history, it feels like we are about to learn the truth of everything. And maybe we're just one of countless generations that have thought this, and it's going to be the same in 100 years' time. I don't know. But it's hard to imagine that we won't know in the next 5 years. And that's...
I agree.
Perhaps a little bit optimistic. Maybe it's part of the human condition, I don't know, to be really optimistic about learning everything. But if we did find out, I would find it hard to swallow that it's all just chance that I happen to be alive experiencing this and happen to also be really interested in the truth as well, because a lot of people might not be all that interested in finding out.
Maybe the people who don't believe in it are in a different timeline where nothing happens, and we're in the timeline where it does happen.
And maybe it's a choice to come here at this time to experience this moment for a specific reason. And it sounds that's kind of getting really into the woo-woo area of things, but it's hard to just shove it to the side when you see all of this stuff happening in your own lifetime. Maybe every lifetime's this interesting. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you were born 100 years ago, you would have seen, World War I and World War II, and you would have, you've seen atomic bombs dropped on people for the first time. You would have seen someone walk on the moon. I guess every generation has its own set of oh shit moments, but it does seem like we are closer to global catastrophe than we've ever been. And if you were looking for a reason for a non-human intelligence to make a move, that would probably be it. It would have to be something on the scale of a planetary catastrophe to get them really involved, to make them come out of hiding and do whatever it is they're going to do. Or maybe they're waiting for that to happen so that they can come along after and do whatever it is they're going to do. But one way or another, it seems like there's a correlation between what we're all talking about and how crazy the world's getting, seemingly by the day.
Sorry, Eric, we're here again.
Eric is just
That's okay, because when you guys were talking, I went and got a beer, so I'm fine.
Oh man, that was great.
We need a beer sponsor, I think, is the next step here.
And
or a
gummy.
Xanax sponsor.
Yeah, brought to
gummies
you by
and-
Xanax.
Yeah.
I took a beta blocker before this one. I got to tell you, just to get through it. But I don't know, guys. That's our time for today. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up? I feel like we've covered so much.
I love this episode. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, same.
Next week, we've got Reed Summers coming to join us.
Yes.
Have you
Cool.
talked to Reed on Secret Activo?
No, I haven't. I want to.
Oh, he'll be here.
He does cool work.
Reed's great. If you guys, for the people watching and listening, if you're not familiar with Reed Summers and his work, Reed is probably one of the top thinkers in the field right now on the potential threat, worst case scenarios of NHI. That's, of course, Eric's favorite topic. And he's got a lot to say about why we shouldn't take things at face value. We should be asking a lot more difficult, tough questions and confronting this head on because, according to Reed, there's a lot more going on than what we are seeing. And I'm really excited to explore that with him next week. So hopefully we'll get into that and we won't be too bummed out by the end of it all. Let's see. We've got
a huge super chat from Toxic Fart there. I just needed to point that out.
Oh my God, Toxic.
Look at that. Nice job.
I love the way you think and your opinions on everything. Oh, well, thanks. That's awfully generous. Please, you and the mods have a beverage on me. Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much. And Psionic Man, thank you for your super chat. Thanks to everybody in the chat today for participating and being a part of this. We asked the YouTube community what their favorite sighting event was, and I'm going to try to be better about this in the future, and I'm going to ask the Discord people too. But we got a Roswell. I didn't get a ton of answers on this, but I got Roswell, and then I got what was our other answer? Let's just see here. I can tell you. Roswell and let's see, we had above Alaska, the 1986 Japan Airlines cargo flight 1628.
Good one.
A gigantic craft. Awesome. So hopefully we'll get some more answers next time. We'll do more of these.
Phoenix Lights, Westall, there's so many.
There's so many. But next week, the promise and peril of first contact with non-human intelligence, the dangers that await us, and stuff that we haven't even thought about with Reed Summers. It's going to be exciting. We will be back earlier than that, but we'll be back live next Friday. Join us again next week. I'll be live on Wednesday, and we'll have some videos in between now and then. In the meantime, if you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing. Go to teamnightshift.com. Check us out there. Join our Discord community and get involved in the conversation. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Until then, keep looking up.